In a recent update of Limbus company, we got a brand new high-level ego skill for our boy Yi-Sang. With this, every sinner now has 7 ego skills, which is a cool milestone to reach. But our final 7th ego is not like the rest of them, as it has some very interesting properties that differentiate it from other ego skills in the game. In today's video, I want to go over Yi-Sang's Fell Bullet and answer a question of whether this ego skill is ever worth using or not. And never mind the fact that I'm over a week late on this and everyone has probably made up their minds already, because I still want to give my opinion on this ego, and because even after all this time I haven't seen a video talking about Fell Bullet's efficiency. We will go over what this ego does, what teams and identities it synergizes with, and then we'll go over some ideal scenarios where an ego skill as complicated as this one can shine. Starting with the skill itself, Fell Bullet Yi-Sang is a 2-coin Pride Pierce high-level ego skill with a base power of 18 and a coin power of 6. The attack weight of the skill is also gigantic, with it hitting up to 7 enemies. Now the unique and interesting part of the skill lies in its targeting and abilities, so buckle up, because there's a lot to unpack here. The skill targets the ally with the least HP. Yes, you read that right. It targets an ally, not an enemy. However, only the initial target is an ally. The other 6 attack weight of the skill go towards the enemy team. Before the attack, Yi-Sang gains turn memory stacks equal to highest resonance plus 1, capping out at 7, and then gains 1 poise per turn memory on self. The stacks of the effect are lost after the attack. The first coin of Fell Bullet only hits 1 target, which is that one ally who is the main target of the skill. The damage of this coin is increased by 10% per turn memory on Yi-Sang against allies, so you pretty much always get that extra damage bonus. If the ally is killed, Yi-Sang and 2 allies gain 3 poise, and you get 1 ego resource corresponding to the killed ally's skill 1 affinity. If the ally isn't killed, however, only Yi-Sang gets 3 poise, and you get no ego resources. The second coin of Fell Bullet can behave in 2 ways. If the first coin killed the ally, the full wrath of Fell Bullet is unleashed on the enemy team. But if the ally survived the hit, only 1 sub-target takes damage, cutting the effective damage of the second coin by as much as 83%, so the skill is pretty much worthless if you don't secure the sacrificial kill. The critical hit damage of the second coin is increased by 5% for each turn memory on Yi-Sang up to 35%. Now, I wasn't able to conclude exactly if this effect stacks additively or multiplicatively with the critical strike damage bonus, but with every other effect in Limbus stacking additively, I'd say it's safe to assume this one does too. That results in the second coin of Fell Bullet critting for 155% of its normal damage. It also inflicts 2 bleed on crit. Before I start talking about using this ego, let's quickly go over its corrosion variant and passive as well. Corrosion Fell Bullet has a base power of 30 and 2 coins with -8 power. This means the power of the second coin in the best case scenario is unchanged, but the first coin can now deal more damage to an ally. This variant of the skill has the same effects, except there is much more bonus damage to go around. With the additional before attack clause, as well as the bonus on ally kill clause of the first coin being added to the second coin's critical hit buff, you can deal 197% damage with the second coin, or even more than that if any multiplicative shenanigans are going on. This additional power comes at a hefty cost of 9 pride and 3 wrath resources, so it will be pretty difficult to throw Corrosion Fell Bullet out. You also have a pretty high chance of not reaching 30 power with the second coin due to having to deal with negative coins, which nullifies some of the additional damage from the effects. Still, Corrosion Fell Bullet is kind of straight up a better version of its Awakening variant, when compared at their best, but it costs a lot more and has a lot more consistency issues, so it's really a toss-up on whether you want to use it or not. Fell Bullet's passive further cements this ego as a poise adjacent skill, by giving Yi-Sang 2 poise count whenever he kills an enemy, up to 2 times per turn. So there you have it. Yi-Sang's Fell Bullet is a Pride Affinity Poise adjacent ego skill that targets an ally, and specifically gets a lot better if you execute that ally with the first coin. So, how do you use it? Well, in terms of viable teams, Poise instantly comes to mind. Yi-Sang has a very powerful Blade Lineage ID that works well in Poise, and can feed this ego. All the while, stacking Poise makes the additional crit damage of the second coin very consistent, making that team the obvious choice for Fell Bullet. But for an ego this unique, synergizing with Yi-Sang's ID isn't enough. It also needs to synergize with other allies on the team for Fell Bullet to get any kind of value. Luckily, Poise has another strong identity with potential to synergize with Fell Bullet. That identity is Blade Lineage Mentor Mersault. His passive allows him to cheat death once per encounter, and his skill 3 can effectively trade away Mersault's health bar for an instant kill on one given enemy. This leaves Mersault at 1 HP on the following turn, which makes him the perfect target for Fell Bullet. Now, I'm not saying to execute Mersault every time you use his counter, but if he has bleed and would die anyways, or the enemy team has a lot of enemies you could potentially take down in one use of Fell Bullet, then using the Eagle skill on him is a pretty good choice. This way Mersault's demise brings value to your team, in the form of a faster victory. However, Mersault isn't the only target for Fell Bullet. If you're playing a chain encounter with multiple enemies, it can be worth it to go for a Fell Bullet kill on an ally that is staggered or has low HP, as you can dish out a ton of extra damage while effectively quick swapping to the next ally by using the chain system. This only works if your team has more than 6 strong identities, and you're prepared to make that sacrifice. Funnily enough, Poise isn't really a team that benefits from this, as it revolves mainly around its 4-unit Blade Lineage core, and none of those units are replaceable. Swapping one of the 2 remaining IDs is also not very effective, as you're just putting one of the supporting actors at 0 SP for no real reason. Though I'd say it's always worth going for a Fell Bullet if that ends the encounter quicker. Another use for Fell Bullet is as a failsafe. This use case is more useful to new and underleveled players, as Fell Bullet can, as I said before, get value out of an ally dying to bleed or getting staggered. Additionally, if an ally fell to -45 SP due to being hit by sinking or SP lowering effects, and that ally is now threatening the rest of your team with a Corroded Eagle skill, you can use Fell Bullet to execute that ally. This results in the usual high damage from the skill, but also the HP and SP you saved by cancelling the Corroded ally's attack can be considered additional defensive value for Fell Bullet. When used in this way, this eagle behaves kind of like the execution bullet from Lobotomy Corporation, which is pretty cool. And, well, that's kind of it. Those are all the ways you potentially could use Fell Bullet. But we're not done here. Because now, I want to go over why this eagle is actually awful, and why all the ways to use it that I mentioned earlier are not enough to make Fell Bullet worth crafting. First off, Fell Bullet in Poise. It's true that this is pretty much the best team for this ego, but sacrificing Mersault is blasphemous. His supportive effects are incredible, and giving all of that free coin power up for some 200 to 300 damage is not very reasonable, unless you're literally ending the fight. You might say that it's worth it if Mersault has bleed, but you can always literally heal him up. You're not forced to execute the man for already being at death's door. Another problem is the damage itself. The 2 coins of the skill are a huge scam, as only the second one hits enemies. This makes the neutral damage of Fell Bullet 30 per enemy, instead of the potential 54, and with the max crit bonus, hitting 6 whole enemies will yield just under 300 damage, which isn't an amount high enough to warrant losing a whole ally for. Of course, Fell Bullet is absolutely worthless in boss encounters, as its coin is not going to deal a high amount of damage to one enemy, and it will at least stagger one ally in return, making it straight up self-sabotage. Fell Bullet's passive is useless as well, as the poise count on kill is only impactful in poise. And guess what? Blade Lineage Yi-Sang is the one identity that has enough poise count anyways, due to his passive, so he literally does not benefit from this effect at all. Now for quick swapping through allies in chain encounters. I could only see this ever being used in combination with Deviat Rodion, as you can bring a level 1 ID in the 7th slot that you can insta-kill with Fell Bullet to get Rodia back on your team in a better condition. This is a hyper-specific scenario, and realistically there's no team that is going to use Deviat Rodia and have enough pride generation for this to work in any way. You could also see Fell Bullet as a tool to give an additional slot to a strong identity in the middle of a fight. But the only time I feel like this would be applicable is if you executed Priest Gregor to give Rin Yi-Sang and Princess Rodya an additional slot after he's done generating Blood Fist. But this, once again, is a hyper-specific scenario, and Bleed, in its current state, also does not have enough Pride generation for this to work. In any other scenario, you can literally just bring 5 IDs instead of 6, and get the necessary slot at turn 2 instead of whenever you get enough for Fell Bullet. Finally, the failsafe angle. Sure, you could use this ego as a Lobcorp execution bullet, but is that really better than healing up a low HP ally, or literally just not letting an ally get corroded? I feel like the chance of this ego being used like that is extremely close to 0 if you know what's happening on your screen and your team isn't 20 levels under the recommended ones. It really feels like Project Moon tried to give us a gamble ego, which is a really cool concept, but Fell Bullet just doesn't deal enough damage to warrant playing around it, and getting any value out of this ego without planning on using it is very difficult. But the last nail in Fell Bullet's coffin is the fact that Yi-Sang has Dimension Shredder and Sun Shower, a Pride Pierce skill that clashes better than Fell Bullet, and a skill that also hits 7 targets, deals pierce damage, and instead of relying on blood sacrifices and block, deals its damage consistently and buffs allies in the process. Really, I could not find any good reasons to unironically use Fell Bullet. If you have any, please leave them in the comments, because I refuse to believe that Project Moon screwed up this much. I would not recommend Fell Bullet to a new player, and everyone who already has a decent team should not be trying any shenanigans with Fell Bullet, as it really is a waste of resources. If you enjoyed this video at any point, consider leaving a like, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future or find yourself coming back to my videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel to never miss my new uploads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!